Hey guys, so I realized that we were kind of rushed at the end of class this week, so I'm putting this together to kind of give you a bit of an idea of how to get started on the homework. First step is you need to make sure you have a folder. I've got one here called Benvenuto Montage that's going to contain everything, including the After Effects project file. And if I double click on that, you can see there's a few bits of things in here that I'm going to use. Um, and the audio is going to come from this ridiculous video I have here. And then in After Effects, I don't actually have anything in here yet. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say Files, Save As. Save As. It's a bit repetitive, but I have to go to that folder, Benvenuto Montage. Oh, there we go. Double click there, and I need to name this project with my name at the very least. And I'm putting it in this folder because everything has to be contained within the same folder if it's going to continuously work. Otherwise, links get broken and it gets really hard to keep your project together. Right? So I say save. For those of you using the images and stuff that I gave you, you can always get rid of the ones you don't end up using so the folder gets smaller. You don't have to keep everything, you just have to keep the ones you used. All right, so I'm going to double click on this empty box right here in the project panel, and it'll let me import some stuff. There we go. I'm going to import everything except obviously the project file, which would be silly. And I say import. It takes a second. And I've got all my stuff in here. Next up, I'm going to go composition, new composition. And under preset, we say HDV, HDTV. It's the top one of this major section here, right? But it'll give me all the settings I want, except for duration. That's always going to be different. The default's 30 seconds. I'll put in 15 for now. If I have to change it, I can always go back to my composition settings, right? So, there we are. So I have my comp over here. I've got my timeline here. There's a setting you can actually do under the composition. Instead of 100%, you can say fit up to 100, and it'll adjust. As you give yourself more space, it'll put more here. I'm going to put my resolution down just so the screen can record properly. You guys don't. You can keep this at full. So next up, you got to make sure you have the audio sourced from somewhere. This is one of the many ridiculous videos they have on the Internet Archive. And I'm just going to go where the eyeball is. Mine's over here. I think your guys' computer's default to putting it somewhere over here. And I'm just going to turn the eyeball off because I just need to hear it. I don't need to see anything, right? And you guys won't be able to hear the audio I have, but it'll basically... I'm looking for where it starts. There we go. It's basically just a guy talking about how awesome Connecticut is. It's a very old 50s video, right? So I turn off the audio or the video because I don't need to see it. I just want to hear the audio, and I hover over the edge of this layer here, and you'll see the cursor changes. And I'm going to drag it to start here, right? I don't want all this other stuff. And then I click on the layer and I drag it in so the start of it is at the beginning of my comp, right? So this will give me my audio to work with to kind of time things out. You can even turn the audio off for now if you aren't finessing timing, if you're just throwing little clips together, right? And then I have all my different assets right here, all these different images, and I can bring the first one down and I drag it. You could drag it here, you can drag it down here, kind of the same difference. Anything that gets brought in here is going to be centered, right? If you bring it down here, it's going to just drop right into the center. And stills are going to default to the length of the composition. There are preferences where you can change that, but for right now, we'll just stick with it. And I know I don't need it to be a whole 15 seconds. So again, I hover over the edge, right? It goes to about 5 seconds. And then I go to the next thing that I want, which is this picture of people, and I'll put it kind of doesn't matter if it goes on top of or underneath your old layer. I have a tendency to have the top layer be the first thing, or actually, I usually do this. I usually have the top, this is the first thing, and then the next layer, and then they go up and up and up. A lot of people put the top one first, and then the next one, and the next one. It doesn't matter. They're going in this order. and they're not overlapping each other, so you can kind of go in whichever order you want. And then I put the third one in here, and I drag it so that it's going to start where this one stops. If you're getting really fancy, you could always have these fade into each other, but we're not concerned with that right now. So now I have 3 different clips. They're about 5 seconds each. I can always change the timing of them a little bit later as I'm listening to the audio from this guy. Now, you got to make sure that under your preview right here, that audio is turned on. You'll see that if it's turned off. And so I'm going to kind of watch it. Like I said, you guys won't hear what he says.
Traveling along the famed Merritt Parkway, one sees Connecticut at its best. The parkway traverses a countryside of beautiful scenic vistas, clad in a velvet...
Yeah, so you can just see that they're kind of timed out to showing up here, showing up here, showing up here. I already know that I want this to start a little bit later. And also this to start a little bit later, just based on how he's talking, right? So you kind of listen to it. I can kind of vaguely hear where one part starts and the other part stops. And I can kind of change things up a little bit, right? And so then that's when you would start adding your animation. That's where you can double click on a layer. It'll bring up your layer panel. Again, if it's defaulting to one of these on top of the other, you can always pull this tab here, drag it so that it's on one of these 2 sidebars. And so you'll have layer over here and what the actual composition looks like over here. And that's when you can start doing your anchor point animation, right? So at the beginning, the guy was talking about, traveling down the Merritt Parkway. And so I can set anchor point animation, make sure view is set to anchor point path. And I can kind of just bring this over here. And I'm going to bring this down here. And I'm going to use this to kind of, right, I'm holding onto the Bezier handle. I'm just going to kind of curve this a little bit so that it's not just a straight line. It's not boring. And then I can watch it. I can just preview it.
Traveling along the famed Merritt Parkway, one sees Connecticut...
It's actually going at a pretty decent speed.
The parkway...
It's a little jumpy. But yeah, so I kind of got a general speed on that one, right? I could zoom in or zoom out now that I'm using the anchor point for animation. Now I go to the next section and you'll see this stays the same because it's not showing you the layer that's here. It's showing you the layer that you double clicked on. So if you need a new thing to show up here, double click. And again, you're on a new layer. You need to bring up the anchor point for that layer and bring up a new stopwatch. Go to the beginning, go to the end, have a little bit of... I actually realize I need to raise these up a little bit because you can't see the people's faces. It's a pretty boring pan. If you can't see what anyone looks... There we go. That's a little bit better. Right? And so I can watch this now. Oh, it's going to preview whatever panel you have highlighted. So I click on this panel, and now it should preview the correct panel.
The parkway traverses a countryside of beautiful scenic vistas.
And that one's too fast. So I put these closer together to get them slowed down. All right, so don't worry about the edit necessarily. I'm looking just more for you guys to get some practice animating with the anchor point, animating with the anchor point while scaling. And then we can worry about finessing edits and timing later. That's going to come as you work in the program more, right? So, just put together a few of these with a nice pan across or zoom out. And if you have any questions, please email me.